Okay, we are live. It looks like here. I appreciate everybody coming on board, and we're gonna have a little. Oh, one second. I've got sound in my monitor here. I gotta get rid of. This should fix it. All right. Sorry about that. Always little technical difficulties on the side when you're getting started. Usually with sound, it seems like no matter what you're doing. But anyway, we're gonna take a look at Caol Ila, and Caol Ila is in one of my favorite regions. Is Isla still my favorite above all regions for Scotch? I don't know. I mean, it is up there. Hey, thanks, Rabbit. Good to see you. Lost Claus, good to see you too. Um, it's Campbelltown is a close, if first or second, along with the islands too, like Talisker, um, Highland Park. There's some good ones in the islands too. So those are like my favorite three. But I've found some space sides I adore, as well as some highlands and some lowlands, believe it or not. So it's kind of it's hard to pick a favorite region anymore after doing a tour of all the distilleries of Scotland. So, but I'm excited to get to look at Caol Ila. It's a fascinating facility because it's used in so many blends. If you stop and I didn't really think about it on the broad spectrum of things until tonight when I was kind of getting ready. Just stop and think of what is Caol Ila used in? Who uses it? Well, I know it's used in a lot of blends like Compass Box. I think Chivas Regal uses it, or Dewar's. There's a ton of different makes out there, and it's such a good base. And that's the funny thing about Caol Ila. If you look at just the 12 by itself, which is their solid portion of the core that you see in pretty much every liquor store I've been to, will usually at least have a Caol Ila 12. And I do have other things in their core range which are really interesting too. They have a Distiller's Edition. They have, or I've had an 18 before. I think they still offer it. And just to make sure I'm not getting off track, I want to make sure that I'm pretty sure they still offer that. Along with, they don't have them readily available anymore, but they also have that unpeated line. And for Caol Ila, that's, or I'm sorry, for Isla in general, it's kind of I won't say strange, but it's not a common factor, a way to get your whiskey. I'd say sometimes is the unpeated route is typically not what you would go for in Isla, but you'd be surprised of what you actually can find in the unpeated variety. Bunnahabhain has a lot of good unpeated scotches. Their 12 and 18 is, pretty much a staple, and very high quality, even though it's not peated and still in Isla. So not too much Caol Ila up near Loch Ness. I think it's in Ontario, Canada. Last Cause, where are you located? Just curious. I'm going to pick up. I thought I had Diageo's site up here. They actually own Caol Ila. It's been around for a long, long time, but they are the current owners of the distillery. Sorry I didn't have this already queued up. I was looking at it earlier. Here we go. Didn't see the malts.com thing, but malts.com is pretty much where Diageo has all their distilleries and information and ranges all in one area. So it does make it a lot easier to find things that they own. Yeah, Chad, shine on, man. Dram, good to see you. I don't have a guest tonight, but I might ask one of you guys. Dram was on last week with doing Bunnahabhain. If you'd like to talk Caol Ila, let me know, and I'll throw you an invite here in a little bit, and we can go through the motions and top some scores. Hey, Mark Rhoda, good to see you. I'm not sure if you're filling that up for a live, Mark, but you're more than you're invited to join me if you have the time and can do it. Yeah, Pigs in the Wing is one of my favorite. I mean, it's hard to have a favorite, but I think my favorite song out of all the songs on this album is the Pigs Three Different Ones. That one is just a classic. Hey Mo, it's good to see you, man. It's been a while. Glad that you could stop by here on the live. Anyway, back to the Caol Ila. And just think about it, guys. If Mark doesn't want to do it or if Dram doesn't want to do it, I'll throw an invite to one of you guys if you're filling up for it. Anyway, we got 12 is the part of the core. The Distiller's Edition, like I mentioned. The 18 is still part of the core range, so you can get that. And the 25 is on the high end of their solid core. You typically find it in the higher end premium places. And one of my favorites, which is still part of their range, it looks like, it's a travel retail exclusive called the Milk. It's not for everyone. The Milk is a little more on the vegetal side of, Caol Ila already has like an earthy peat with a ton of maritime influences to it, but the Milk is even more so. The Milk is like, if you take that earthiness and put some more herbal notes in it, some more vegetative kind of stuff in there. Still on the light end, it's not a heavy Scotch. This is for people that tend to like a lot of the Glengoyne kind of a mouthfeel. It's a little lighter. As long as the flavor is there, and that's what we'll get into, because there's a big debate with Caol Ila over, it's if it's thick enough. Some people, like myself, I like a heavier mouthfeel, like a Klein Leash, that type of thing, Mortlock. But the Caol Ilas tend to be on the thinner side, but it's all about the flavor, and that's what I'd like to get into too. Thanks for at least trying to get here, Mose. I really appreciate your support. And Caol Ila is a tough one, not much of a core range. Yeah, mostly just see the 12 around. Yeah, I started off with the availability is a little, you kind of have to stretch sometimes, but most of your decent, and when I say decent, I mean medium, not the ultra premium stores, but the medium sized, decent sized ones, typically, at least on the East Coast that I found, would carry at least the 12 and at least one other one like the 18 or even an unpeated one. And sometimes the high end 25, 30, 40 year stuff. But usually those are, the guys that are looking for the really, really high end stuff are going to order it anyway because they want a specific bottle, a specific year, and they're looking for something that they can just, pick out. And we're going to get to the unpeated juice talk here in a little bit. But anyway, but that's like their core right now. The 12, the Distillers, the 18, the 25, and the Milk. There are the 30, the 40. I've seen a lot of unpeated versions, varying years. And they do change from year to year, just like a special release like a Springbank would do, or like, any of these yearly releases like Lagavulin 12's cast strength. It changes every year. So even if you like, you're always most likely going to like it somewhat, but you will find times where you really, really like the 2016 and the 2017. It might not be as good. It might even be better than the year before. It's something to definitely, keep in mind when you're looking into this stuff. So with that said, I'm not sure if anybody, I don't think anybody jumped at the chance to join in, so we'll go solo if that's what we're going to do. So I pulled up my trusty list, and if you guys want to follow along, if you go to my channel, and if you go in the discussion, there's a link, and I sent it out on Twitter today as well, where I'm keeping a spreadsheet that's live. It's read only, so you can't put your own numbers in there. I might play around with that in the future as far as like a shared list, but this is the one I wanted to keep with your all's input. I am factoring in what you guys think with these scores. So even if I'm a huge fan, like I was with Ardbeg, there were certain things that certain people said that did make me think about it a little more and affect the score. So this you do have a chance to have your say as part of what we're doing, which I did want it more interactive. So far we've taken a look at 3 distilleries. The first one was Ardbeg, factoring in taste, consistency, variety, age statements, availability, value, and the craft. And I'll get into the details when we're doing this in a second. And overall, we got an 8, which is about an A minus. With Bunnahabhain, really close, 7.79, A minus as well, factoring on all those scores. And then we also looked at Glen Scotia, which the only thing we really nicked them, I don't want to say heavy on, but a couple things that had issues with Glen Scotia was not as much variety. You've got your double cask, your 15, and your Victoriana pretty much as their core, with the occasional, not Vescial or some sort of like yearly release, but it's pretty rare. Not easy to find, definitely. And the craft, coloring, it does, factor in and with the non-chill filtering, if it's chill filtered or not. Those types of things make a difference. So we're going to look at these factors specifically with Caol Ila. And I have done some homework on different things to see, and I have, thankfully, I've had a lot of options of trying it. Tonight, I'm going to start off with this guy. You might, some of you might be familiar with the 17 unpeated style of Caol Ila. Sorry about the light. The light's a little glary. Trying to get it where it's working, but not so glary. But it's a nice looking bottle. I'll get into the taste and all that in a second. But I've had the 12. It's easy to find one, like I said. The Distiller's Edition I have not had yet. I do want to talk with someone that has had it and let me know what you thought of it. I love the 18. It's the 12 with, that much age. It brings out the complexity that's lacking, I think, in the 12. It's got a complex nose on the 12, not as much on the palate. And I think the 18 is what really brings everything together. And I have had the Mulk, and that's sitting back there as well on that other side. Well, there you go. The green box. It's all reversed, so you know how that goes. I have to get used to the mirror image thing. It throws me off. Anyway, and the mocha, like I said, was the vegetal, more a bit earthy, even more so than the typical 12. I think if you're looking for something a little different, and you're not afraid to have a little bit of more earthiness in your drink, I think it's definitely worth a try. It's not expensive. I don't remember it being a very high dollar, even ordering it overseas, for example. I think you can find it at a reasonable price. And that's one thing that's interesting about Caol Ila. I guess there's just so much of it. And maybe that's why it's I guess because they produce so much of it because of the blending and stuff, but there's so much of it. I mean, they probably hardly ever run out of anything. And I've never seen any issue where it was hard to find, a particular offering, whether it was unpeated or peated. The Rock Gut Review. Good to see you. That's a new name. And welcome to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by. So Lost Cause is already talking about the non-chill filtering and or coloring. We're going to get to that. I'm going to go in order from left to right on the spreadsheet. Hopefully you're taking a look at it. And a good choice there, Chad. I love the Lochgorn. I did talk to Swami tonight and asked him to talk with me about Kilhoman, which will be on the agenda at a later time when he has the availability. Also, Lafroig is going to be done by Stephen Connor. That's going to be a fun show. When he's available, we'll be doing that one as well. Anyway, so back to Caol Ila here. So I don't have the 12 handy. I've had lots of occasions, and we're going to start with taste, overall taste. The taste of Caol Ila 12 is solid. It's like I said, the nose is got some complexity to it, not so much in the palate for more of you guys that are connoisseurs, but it's still solid in a go-to and should be, I think, on everyone's bar. Because the taste, not just for the fact of being a single malt by itself, but you can use this for your own blends. And I highly, highly recommend practicing. It's just like music. Practice taking Caol Ila 12, the peated version, and think of what would be good with it. Maybe a nice sherry, maybe a nice Glendronach 12 or something. But you got to be really low key on putting it. So when you are blending with Islay whiskeys, you want to think maybe 20%, 15% to start with, and the rest you want your sherry base or your solid regular base, like if it's Dalwhinnie, or if you've chose something a little thin like a Glengoyne 12, or if you've chose something extremely light like a Glenkinchie, Auchentoshan, something like that, on the lighter end of things. So with that said, I'm going to talk about this one because this one, unfortunately, will say it, I was not a fan when I first opened the bottle. And it was one of the pricier ones. I think this was around, I got a deal on it for a 17-year whiskey. It was like 117, which is unheard of. Now, the 15 unpeated, I think, is drawing like 150 to 180. It's pretty high. But this one, even though it was 55.9, and this is bottled in 2015, by the way, if you're wanting to know, 55.9 and all that, and let it, and when I first opened it, I let it sit out, and I was patient, and it just had a abundance of salt. I used to, when I did reviews over Distiller, I would type them out. There's still a couple hundred out there if you're interested in what I've had to say about specific drams. Take a look at distiller.com and look up Telex, and you'll see about 200 different reviews of all sorts of stuff. But anyway, I always chose my trademark kind of my what's the word for it? Not slogan, but something that made me a little different than the other reviewers. I would always pick a song to put toward a dram, and this one was a Buckethead song called "Fear of Salt," because that's the first thing that came to mind was my fear of salt, because it was so overly briny. I mean, I don't hesitate for a good maritime dram. I love Old Pulteney. I love Talisker. I like some salt in it. I like maritime brininess, but this was like thrown in with olives, and really big ones like green olives, black olives, and pretty, I don't know if I would say astringent, but fairly on the getting close to edge of the sour bitter end, not just the salty end. And there was no sweet factor involved anyway. Caol Ila is not if you're a sweet tooth like I am, Caol Ila is not going to give you that. I don't have to have that in a dram to enjoy it, because I love the 12 and 18, like I said, and the moat. But this is it's hard to explain just the salty factor of it. What made me feel a little different when I thought, well, I surely have to break it out tonight, was I was reading someone talk about this, and they were like me, they hated it when they first opened it. It was really rough. But after like a lot of time passed, just like my bottle, I mean, it's not healed, but it's getting close to that. They said that once I think there was about halfway, it was about a month old or so, they went back to it and they fell in love with it. They thought it was like the best thing ever. So I'm like, well, I'll give it a try. Maybe the Chad's saying that he totally gets that black olive. Nobody likes it, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe I was not prepared for it. So when it hit me, it was an overwhelming kind of a hit, because this is cask strength whiskey. This is no joke. It didn't seem like it was overly burny or alcohol-y tasty. It was just that note was just so strong. So hopefully, maybe after some time, and I have to let it sit out. In certain drams, I usually have a rule where I give it like a year. Not a year, I'm sorry. Well, a year for every minute. So 17 years, 17 minutes at minimum in a glass before I try it. Dram says that I've got the same bottle, but I haven't tried it yet. So there you go. So if you open a dram and you're getting into it, and if it's just not hitting you, and this is not the only person I've heard this from. I've heard it from a few people. Give it time, come back to it, and then try it. So maybe open it, get through the neck, pour, sit it on the shelf for a good month or two, come back to it, don't preserve it, go back to it. Oxidation supposedly really helps this bottle a lot, so we're going to take a look at that. It does hold a nice shape. I mean, it doesn't run hardly at all. One thing, I'm not going to get into the coloring and chill filtering yet. We'll talk about that when we get to that level. But we're going to look at taste first, just basic taste. 1 to 10, 1 being the worst absolute thing you've ever tasted, 10 being the best absolute thing you've ever tasted. Where does Caol Ila fall for you guys from what if you've just had the 12 only, that's okay. But the more you've had, of course, the more it's going to, I think, be a better way to score it. What's your take? And you can throw independent bottlings in there too. And there's a lot of independent bottlings from Caol Ila. The Gordon MacPhails, I know, have done a boatload. Signatory, Provenance, and Alexander Murray. I mean, I'm sure they've got. I haven't seen that specific bottle, but I'm sure Alexander Murray's got to have at least had to do one Caol Ila. I know that Exclusive Malts did them before they were gone a lot. Portishead, I think. I've heard stories where they're kind of like they're not Caol Ila per se, but they do use their stuff. I don't know if they blend different. Like I think they're kind of like an independent baller where they just get a cask from a distillery and go with that. But they might be a blender. Does anybody know? I can't remember about Portishead if they do their own blending of different distilleries, or if they're doing their own single malts like from a cask. If you know, please put it in the chat there. But if you could throw a number out, throw a number out too. Dram's only tried the 12 from the core range, but he's had a few independent bottlings. With that said, with the independent bottlings, what do you think? Is your overall taste? Mine is good. I'm not going to go as far as a 9 because the mouth coat is a bit thin on for me subjectively. But one thing I will say is it's a solid, good baseline taste, and that it's got to be somewhat universally good because it's used in so many blends. That's kind of a giveaway. You can't deny, if that many blenders blend companies that blend. I was trying to think of the word for that. If that many people utilize I'm sorry, I shouldn't use utilize, but use the Caol Ila in their blends, then it's there's got to be a reason for that. It wouldn't sell if they didn't use it. So I tell you what, the nose is I don't remember it being this good. Huh. I dare say it, but I did get some sweetness on the nose this time. Hopefully oxidation really brought it out. Because I didn't get sweetness before. I would not ever equate sweetness to a Caol Ila typically. But there was like some, almost like a powdered sugar meets some fruit. Light end though. Not talking rubies or strawberry, raspberry stuff, but on the lighter, like your appley pear, green apple, like a light pear. A little bit of sawdust, but not off-putting, and not nice, kind of a woody. And you do get the maritime, but the maritime is not as prevalent as it was before. The sea is there, but it's died down a lot over time. Not to say I'm gonna miss it too much. Dram's saying that I thought I saw a number. Oh, Chad was saying, as a whole, I give the distillery a 6.5. Are you talking about taste? I'm just talking about taste, not factoring in all the things we're going to look at, but just the taste alone is at a 6.5. Not awesome, but not bad. Worth the coin, yeah. 6.5, I think, is a little on the lower end of what I would probably give them. Rock Gut says he's liked every Caol Ila he's had, but they're not the favorite. I think it's just solidly consistent, which probably lends itself to blends. Yeah, we'll talk about consistency in a second. But I think that overall taste, I'm leaning toward more a 7. I think it's a solid taste. Let's have a taste. This might bring me up to an 8 if I get into this one, because this is the only Caol Ila I ever had that I was kind of like, I don't think I'll buy another bottle of this. And I was going to get the 15 unpeated, and since this was the 17, I wasn't too keen with it. I was like, now they have an 18 unpeated, and I think they still have a 15 unpeated. On the rare side, you might have to do some digging to find these, but I have seen them in regular, decent shops, medium to small sized Scotch places here in Maryland, at least. If you live in one of those state run, or if you're in Canada and you have the province run or whatever they do up there, I know you have like some initials for it, LCBO or whatever it's called. If you have to deal with those, then it might be rough without ordering, but hopefully you can find a way to get your hands at least on one to try. This is neat, by the way. Mm. The LCBO, wow. 15, wow. 51, oh, 50. Is that the unpeated Loch Ness? It sounds like it. It's that high ABV. Good to see you, Trooper. Man, wow. That is different than it was the first time. And more complex. That's interesting. Yeah, his take is 6.5, slightly better than average. And I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, my own taste score, I was leaning more towards a 7. And I'm going to factor it in altogether to make one. But wow, the oxidation does help this a lot. Good, neat. Wow, a lot more complex. It had some like syrupy notes, but along with some still the fruit notes are there. The salt is still kind of on the sideline on this. The maritime notes were really, really heavy with the salt at first, and now it's more of like that was a really nice sip of huh. I wonder if I had anything around the same time I was sipping it, or if there's another factor earlier. I did try it on a couple occasions though, where I tried it, put it away for like a week or two, came back to it, still wasn't there yet, came back to it, went back, and it was it just wasn't there. But now it's there. Let me try one more time here without. Then we'll put a couple drops of water in it. Doesn't need it though. Wow. It's got a more sweeter edge to it. It really does. I'm surprised. I get a little more smoke in it. It's got smoke even though it's not peated. It's got this kind of a. I mean, it tastes like smoke. It's like I'm not sure how to explain that. Hmm. It's not peated, but how could it be smoky? Does that make any sense? I'm trying to think. Where would the smokiness factor be coming from? Hmm. Maybe it's a cocoa nib, like a cocoa chocolate, real heavy dark chocolate, not bitter cocoa. It's got some. It's not milk chocolate by any means. It's definitely on that dark chocolate, but more like a mocha. Yeah, I'm leaning towards like a mocha meets chocolate, subtle, very dark. Uh, Mineral, but not bitter. It's the only way I can say it. Residual peat, maybe Dram says that's possible. It's got some interesting things going on in it. Let me drop just a little. I mean, a little bit of water on the side and see. let that sit for a bit and see what we got. I haven't seen any numbers, so I guess you guys haven't really had a chance or to try Caol Ila enough to have a feel for taste. So I got a 6.5 from Chad. Um, Throw another number out there, guys, if you can think of overall taste 1 to 10, which you would give Caol Ila as a whole. With that, I'm going to try it with a drop of water to see if it gets even more complex. But this has changed my mind on this bottle. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised because it was so bad at the beginning that I tried to blend it with things to try to get it just where I would enjoy it more, and it just it blends well, but I just didn't get it on its own. But I guess this one just needs some air and needs some time. And I mean, you never really hear of decanting whiskey, but this might be one of those type of things where you want to decant it for. I mean, a good example is the Glendronach peated Portwood. That whiskey was frustrating to me because I wasn't thinking that it was going to be an hour wait to drink it. But if you want a good taste, you will let it sit in that glass for a minimum of 45 minutes before you even touch it. That's how that works sometimes. And this might be one of those types of glasses where, of course, you're normally not going to let it sit out for 45 minutes to an hour. But if you do approach something and you're just not getting it, no matter what water you put in or need or however, what glass you're using, any of that stuff, if none of it makes sense, then sometimes it's best just to, pour it neat, let it sit out for, a good hour and a half sometimes and see what happens. You're not going to, since you didn't like it the first time, you're not going to have anything to lose letting it sit out. Maybe might have a little bit of a microscopic angel share happen, but you're not really losing anything. Dram's saying also possible that they reuse a cask that contains a peated Caol Ila. Yeah, that is true. I didn't get any smoke hardly from the first go. I guess the overwhelming maritime and the maritime and briny salt olive factor just canceled all of that out. But there was no smoke in the nose at all. Zach, good to see you. That's a new name for the channel, I believe. If you haven't been here before, welcome and welcome, Gawkin. Looks like he's likes Caol Ila, but do prefer some of the other Lila whiskeys. Yeah, I see that a lot with Caol Ila versus Ardbegs and Laphroaigs, and I'll agree. Like if I'm given a choice between an Ardbeg 10, a Laphroaig 10, a Lagavulin 16, Oban 14, I think I'd still go with the Caol Ila 12 way before I would go with the Oban, just because of subjective personal taste. Obans tend to be a little more on the Highland-esque, kind of more grainy, or what's the word for it? Or not herbal, but they do have I guess it would be. They tend to be a little more grainy, a little more malty overall, I'd say. Wow, Moses never had a Caol Ila, but has had a Port Essig 110, which it might be Caol Ila. And I will say that I have had the Port Essig, the one earlier before that. I think it was like a 90 proof before the 100. It was one of the early ones, and I suspected it of being a cast strength type of Caol Ila of some sort. Zoc likes the Oban maltings. Yeah, the maltiness of the Oban is if it, the malt factor I don't mind. Floral notes. Oban has a lot of floral notes in it too. That's the word I couldn't find earlier because I was thinking, well, it's not herbal, it's not earthy like a Caol Ila, but it's definitely with the maltiness, which I do like the maltiness. It's some of the I don't want to say harsh, but more intense floral notes in there kind of throw me off a little bit. But it is what it is. Subjective, like I said. But a taste factor, I think a 7 is worthwhile. But let's have one more sip. Yeah, it just took away my smoky. I don't know if they should say smoky, but my chocolate, dark chocolate note kind of tamed it a bit. I don't think the water necessarily really helped it much. It's actually really good and neat. Got to be in the mood to drink, cast strength whiskey straight at 55.9. It's not, super super duper high, close to 60, but it's above 50. So you got to be, prepared for that. But I don't think that's a bad taste per se. With it being cast strength and 17-year, it's kind of a strange combination because usually with your higher age stuff approaching 18, you don't see a whole lot of cast strength stuff unless it's specialized, like like a single cast from like 20, 30 years ago kind of stuff, like specialized glendronic releases, that kind of thing. Typically see a really high ABV with the age statement like that, but I definitely welcome it. It's pretty good. Not my favorite still. It's not something I might buy again, but if I'm offered the glass, I'm not going to turn it down now. I think I would be interested to see what it would be like again. In a different bottle, different setting. But with that said, I'm thinking still a 7 is going to be fair for the Caol Ila factor across the board on the taste. One thing we did talk about, and this does factor into the score, is the consistency. And with that said, Caol Ila is extremely consistent. I have not had a bottle of 12, and I haven't had numerous versions. I've had the 18 a couple times, and the 17 I've had a couple times. The one other time besides this particular bottle that I have, and it's dead on. Right, I mean, it's dead on as far as like they nail it every time. Lockness says to be about a 7.5 to 8. Yeah, I'd say it's. I think you're talking about taste still, but would Caol Ila compare to Talisker 10? No, it's apples and oranges most, I'd say. Um, it's funny though. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say apples and oranges. I would say oranges and tangerines. It's not the same, but it's closer because they both have a lot of like salt factored slash white pepper, uh, black pepper on the Talisker sides. Caol Ilas don't typically have the pepper. They do have the salt factor. They have the maritime brininess. That type of thing is Caol Ila, Old Pulteney's, Taliskers. Those are the most maritime like briny drams I could think of. Yeah, the Dark Storm does rule. Um, but no, I wouldn't say they're alike by any means because the Caol Ila is an earthy peat. It's definitely as soon as you taste it and smell it, it's Caol Ila. It's hard to explain other than you can sense that earthy slash briny maritime thing right from the get go typically, and no one else does it like Caol Ila. I can't think of another dram like it, and I think that's why folks like John Glazer from Compass Box, they go for that because that's what they want for their base of their peat factor when they're trying to get that peaty deal along with an Ardbeg or something else that has a little bit of a difference, but it has peat as well. They'll put two types of peat in to give it more of a thing, coastal brininess, but different. Yeah. That's a good. That's the thing. It's like they're both maritime salty, briny drams, but with that said, there's not really anything else comparable. I don't think, because Talisker has that really nice white black pepper punch, a little more assertive. It's got a heavier mouth coat. Those kinds of things make it a lot different. So, but consistency, what do you guys think on the consistency deal? And Zach says 7.5 in the mark. So I'll factor that in. He said 7.5 to 8. You said 7.5. I'll bring it up to 7.5. I don't think that's out of bounds. I think I think it's a fair deal because it's definitely above average, being a 5. Maybe not quite as what you'd seek as a single malt by itself compared to maybe like a Bunnahabhain 12 or a Ardbeg 10 or whatever, but it's I think you still need it to have in the bar, not just for single malt, but to do your own blends, like I said. But anyway, let's go to consistency, guys. Any numbers on consistency? I'm thinking high. I'm thinking that, I mean, I don't give 10s because 10 is perfect. It's hard to find something that's perfect in every way, shape, or form. But I would give them a 9 on consistency. I think that's pretty fair. Let me know if you disagree with that. If you don't think it's that consistent. If you had a bad bottle of Caol Ila, let me know. If you've um, had it at a bar versus a an expo versus at home, and it's been different. Definitely let me know. 9.5. Yeah, that's true. They are solid. They should get some bonus points for being as consistent as they are. I have to say that should be a high factor. The name of the independent bottler last night at the New York Whiskey Club is Valic and Mallet Whiskey, a new company, huh? I don't know where that came from. Oh, you're talking to a Trooper about like 116, the Distiller's Edition. That's a good one too. Um, on this, there is consistency. Yeah, I uh, I think 9.5 is fair. I might even throw them a 9.9. That's how consistent they actually are. Okay, so Loch Ness says there are difference between Talc Storm and Dark Storm. I've never seen a Dark Storm. Yes, there is a difference. There's a big difference. Uh, Not just the fact that the Talisker Storm is a regular portion of the lower end of their core. The Dark Storm is a travel retail exclusive. It's a lot. It's smokier, and it's definitely I think a heavier mouth coat. The Let me, before I tell you anything else, let me do a quick check on something with the Dark Storm, because I don't want to stir you wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about something. 1 second. So the Dark Storm is the 45.8, and it's heavily charred casks. That's the Dark Storm. And the Storm is also 45.8, but they don't talk about the charring of the casks. They do. I mean, charred barrels are used, which does notch the smoke up. They're saying, but I think the Dark Storm is even a little more so. See, spicy and full bodied on that. I'm just seeing if their notes are similar. Smoky and rich for the Storm. Smoky and rich for that one. Spicy and full bodied on the Dark Storm. So I'm assuming that they got a little more maybe pepper out of the Dark Storm with the heavier charred. These are heavily charred casks versus just, that first level of smoke. So we'll get into detail on the Talisker show on that. But there is a big difference, and I do enjoy both, but I prefer the Dark Storm. Some people prefer the Storm than the Dark Storm. I have seen a lot of even what I would consider expert reviewers, think of it differently. So, there you go. But I think they're both definitely worth a definite, a high look, a very intense look. Let's talk variety. Variety meaning, with the core, what else do they have? Do they have, they didn't talk about first fill or second fill on the Talisker there, Chad. Sorry. But I'll get more into detail of that on the Talisker show that I do. The variety is not just the core, the 12, the 18, the Moke, like I said. What else do they have? Does Caol Ila have, other options? And with the unpeated line, it is makes it interesting with all the independent bottlings and with all of the options you can get in blends. the they have like a Stitchel Reserve from what, or I think it's like a Stitchel Reserve, something like that. What is the name of that thing? Give me 1 second. Sorry, I can't memorize all the names of the options out there. I've got a lot of them memorized, surprisingly, but let's see if I can. Here we go. I think it's Stitchel Reserve, something like that. That was another, if I'm not mistaken, another unpeated offering. It's a name for the retired distillery manager, Billy Stitchel, I didn't know that, who spent 39 years at Caol Ila, the 8th unpeated single malt from the Diageo's special releases. So it is an unpeated release. So they are big on giving you lots of unpeated options. And like I said earlier, they do have the natural cask strength options, as well as their higher, 30 and 25 year stuff. So they do have a pretty solid variety. It looks like Moses asking, has Caol Ila done a finished or secondary maturation whiskey? I'm assuming most that you're talking about where you take your whiskey after the 3 years, you let it sit there for up to 10, and then you take it and you put it in a different cask, like a sherry, like a manzanilla or a amontillado, or if you take it maybe red wine cask, something like that. Is that what you mean by a second maturation? I'm assuming that's what you mean. And the finished being the kind of the same thing where you have it mature, but then you finish it. I guess I'm trying to understand the difference between like a finished whiskey in a different cask versus a second maturation. I might actually learn something on this one. Let me know what you mean specifically there. Availability here is really weak. We'll get to that in a second. But variety, I'm thinking that they're pretty solid on variety with their core, with having the 12, the 15, a 15 unpeated and 18. They've got their 25, their 30, their 40. There's cask strengths, their unpeated cask strength. I mean, all of the independents and the blends and stuff. The 15 Flora and Fauna bottling, that's a classic. It's hard to knock them at all on a variety as well. I guess did they do fish shield releases? I think they would have something like that, wouldn't they? Maybe they don't. I haven't heard of a specific fish shield. They do have like a yearly release. Like there was a 15-year 2016 release from 2000. Trying to see if they've done a special, like a fish shield thing. Yes, they do have fish shield releases, a 10, a 12. They had a 10-year for 2018, a 12-year from 2017. So it's like my chat got popped out. 1 second. Let me fix that. What happened to my chat? That's crazy. Restore. There we go. Restore and pop out. Sorry about that. I must have accidentally. Yes, exactly. That's it. Thanks, Mos. Madeira, totally on a Madeira kick right now, Zach says. I don't blame you, man. I love Madeira casks. Lefroy Carriage's 2016, I want to say. Is it the 16? Yes, 2016. Definitely try it if you haven't had it. It's absolutely great in my opinion. Some people, if you're not in for a sweet taste, but if you like Madeira, I think you're in for a treat. That's the way I look at it, at least. Okay. So with the shield and all that, I got to give them a really, really ultra high score as well on the variety. So I'm thinking a 9. I can't knock them for anything. They have everything covered, I'd say. They have a solid core. They've got all of the stuff I mentioned. If anybody has a objection, let me know. But I think that's pretty fair. Age statements specifically. Well, they're pretty good about it. They do, like I said, they have the 12, they have the 15, they have a 17 unpeated, a 15 unpeated, and 18. They've got the 25 to 30 to 40. I mean, I think that I've even seen a 50. I'm pretty sure at some point with a Caol Ila. Zach's got a Kilhoman Madeira single cask. Ooh, oh, you bastard! I don't have that one. I've got like the original cask strength, the vintage 2008, the Lockgorm, the red wine, the Sineg, and the Sauternes, and I've had the port, and I've had the STR, but I have not had the Madeira. Man, that sounds good. Um, I bet that's tasty. Age statements. Chad's saying 8. Yeah, if they had an 8 and a 10, or an 8 or a 10 year that was readily available, then I think I would bump them up to a 9. But I think 8 to 8.5 is pretty fair on the age statements. Because it's really hard to find something that. Oh, it's a Texas exclusive. Really? Why would Texas have an exclusive on Kilhoman? That's interesting. Oh, do they use a Texas distillery for the base? Because Kilhoman has an Impex line where they go to different distilleries and use their stuff to do their thing. That might be why it's a Texas exclusive. Because I do have a Maryland exclusive. I got to get my hands on at some point up at the one of my favorite places here that has an Impex that was a bourbon distillery in Maryland. I got to get my paws on that one. But Loch-Ness is saying I'm on to the Loch Lomond 12. Let me know what you think about that Loch-Ness, that Loch Lomond 12. We'll do that one. Maybe you can do that one with me. That would be a good one to do. Nebraska. Wow. Specs is a liquor store that picked a single cask. Yeah, that's what happens typically. Like, yeah, my store picked a cask, and the Kilhoman uses that cask for their deal. It's interesting how that works. I don't think a lot of distilleries do that. I'm not sure if it's because maybe because they're smaller or younger that they can do that kind of thing. I'm not sure why it's not a little, done a little more often. But anyway, I think, unless there's an objection, I think 8 on the age statements is pretty fair. Let's look at availability on Caol Ila. Now, when you think availability, I want you to think not just the liquor store. I'm talking the restaurants. I'm talking, just in general availability. How hard is it to find? And this will be a factor because here, like I said, for me to find a Caol Ila is pretty damn easy, surprisingly, compared to some of you guys. Like on me, I cannot think of a store that doesn't at least have the 12, if not also the 18, a signatory release, an independent bottle, and maybe even a Portishead, and maybe an unpeated 17 and a 15 sitting there. And so, I mean, some of the better places have a couple unpeated bottles still. What do you guys think on the availability factor across the board? Now, I've never found, sadly, a Caol Ila at a bar before. I'm sure Jack Rose has it because Jack Rose has everything. But I'll show your thing here one second. There's Zach. The Chad say it's 7.5, but I have never seen it at a bar, and it's kind of sad that you can't go into a place and get it at a bar anywhere. I know a lot of you guys say that you can't find it where you are, except a specialty store, which I know you only have one in the area, kind of thing. So it does that should factor in. But at the same time, do you ever see it at a bar? I'm just curious if if that's a factor where, yeah, you might not be able to get it in the local store, but you can waltz into any bar and pick it up, kind of thing. Probably not. I think the reasoning is because it's used in so many blends and so many rebrandings. I mean, the exclusive malts I know uses them, and they might not even say it's a Caol Ila, but they'll say it's an Islay. That happens a lot of the time where certain Diageo might not, I guess, want people to know, or they might want it just to be factored without the name and see if people like it or not. Maybe it's like I'm sure they probably do some sort of like test marketing where they give it. Maybe that's what Portishead's doing. Maybe they're taking like Caol Ila's stuff and seeing what sells versus what doesn't. I don't know. I mean, Portishead is pretty consistently decent from what I've heard and have had, but they could also be doing that with some of the Doers and Chivas Regal stuff and some of the other branded blends too that use them. I don't know of all the blends that do it, but DHS's bars with whiskey collection are few and far between here. Yeah, it is tougher once you get away from the West and the East Coast to find these kinds of places. But do you see it ever at the bar? Probably not. Bars with the whiskey collection are few and far between here. Yeah. But surely they have at least 4 or 5 Scotch options. Those are even the kind of bars I'm talking about. The ones here usually have Glendronach, Lagavulin, Laphroaig. I don't see Ardbeg, but I do see like Highland Park. Trying to think, Talisker, even Oban. The Diageo brands are well represented in bars here, at least. Bourbon bars are here, huge selections, but Scotch choices are pretty slim. Yeah. I'm thinking availability. They'd have to get knocked a bit because of just the lack of availability of the bars scene alone. I got to give them credit on the East Coast, at least as far as the stores. But like you said, you guys not too much. So we'll factor that in. I think it's about a 7, maybe. Not too high, but not too low. A little above average, is at least on the scene here as far as the stores. But Las Casias, Benrac, Diageo brands, Glendronach, probably 12 and 18. Kilholman, I mean, unless you go to a specialty bar, I haven't seen it offered. There is one of my favorites in Baltimore that calls Birds of a Feather. That she has that's where I had the original cast strength the first time. But that's the only bar in this whole area I've ever seen that's had a Kilholman on being available. Trooper says he'd like to try more of the Cleveland line, but all I can find there is the 12. And this goes to show, DHS is a huge fan of the unpeated stuff. Yeah, I don't know if you caught me drinking my 17 earlier, DHS. I'm sipping this one right now. It's as you can tell, I'm getting not a heel, but getting close. And I poured a little something earlier. I've been sipping on it. It's almost gone. It's gone. Much better after the oxidation. I'm surprised of how better it is. Availability, Troopers is giving him a 3. All right, 7 is a bit high. I will agree. I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, some of these guys, man, all they can find is 12. That's so rough. DHS had the 15, 18 in the Stitchell Reserve. Yeah, I want to get my hands. I've heard the Stitchell Reserve is no joke. It's probably one of the better unpeated ones available. I might have to give it a try since I'll have to let it sit out for a while if I don't like it. But I think my score definitely went a little higher on that. But yeah, I'm going to take them down to a 6. I think I won't go as far as a 3 Trooper. I think they're a little bit above average when it comes to at least the I don't know, the liquor store scene. It's so easy to find here. It's so sad that for some of you guys it's not. I'm just trying to think of how low to bring it down for that, but I think that's fair. Not too crazy, but All right, let's go to value. And when I talk about value, I'm talking about, when you're shelling out that money for the 12, you're shelling out that money, even if it's a dram at a bar, or if it's, the high end bottles and the low end, what you're spending, is it worth it? Is it worth what you're shelling out? The LCBO has the 35 for $1,200. That is craziness. it's hard to justify spending that kind of money. But you know, Lagavulin 25, I think, is at least 1,000, if not 17. I can't remember the price on it, but it's up there. And a 35 is 10 more years, so 1,200 is actually, Trooper Henry saying the 12 for Loch Lomond's 34 a bottle. Yeah, uh, I don't know. I wasn't too into that one, but that's a whole nother story. That's later for the Loch Lomond show, but 35-year at cast strength official bottling, 1,200 doesn't seem that high. Yeah, if you think about other distilleries and that have the 20 somethings, I'm looking at you, Ardbeg, 30. For $600, it's like a 21 year. I'm like, that's a little crazy to me, but it is hard to find a 30 plus that's not at least $1,000. Can anyone think, no matter what distillery or brand it is, of a 30-year-old whiskey, and I don't care even if it's not cast strength or cast strength, can you find something that's under 1,000? It'd be hard to find something that old. That's not that high. Value, I think Caol Ila is a great value. 8.5, Zach says. Yeah, they're not. That's not a joke. They are reasonably priced. The 17 unpeated I got for 117. I mean, how can you knock that? That's extremely good value. Glenfarclas is a good distillery. I can't wait to talk about that one at some point too. I love a lot of their stuff, and their stuff is so perfectly priced. 25 you can get for like a couple $100. It's insane. But you might be referring to their over 30. I don't. I mean, unless it's some specialized family reserve bottling, I don't see how it could be. The 30 Glenfarclas being over 1,000, because hell, you can get the 25 for like a couple $100 or $300 at the most. From what because I've had it before and wasn't that crazy. The Glenfarclas 40 is low 1,000, so 30 should be less. Yeah. But anyway, get back to Caol Ila. I'd agree. I think the 8.5 value is reasonable. I'm not sure. Man, because I have seen some crazy ass prices for the unpeated 18, just 1 year above this, being like $50, $60 more for just 1 year. I think I got this on sale though. It's probably regularly runs at 130 to 140, but for 17-year cast strength whiskey, I can't say that. I'm not sure if this is. Yeah, I mean it's natural cast strength. I can't say that. That it's an unreasonable by any means value. It's definitely a better value than most. So I think that might be well deserved. It's a tough one. I'll bring it to an 8. I'm not sure if I can go 8.5 for value, but I think I can go 8. I don't know. I'm thinking about the availability is really bothering me, because it's below average almost in some aspects when it comes to for some of you guys. Even though it's so easy to find, I'm thinking availability might be a 5. Thinking, but value, I think 8's fair. Do you think 8's fair, guys, on across the board on the low and the high end bottles for what the prices that you see for Caol Ila? Do you think it's reasonable, or are you kind of like, And keep in mind, we're just talking about Caol Ila here. I know Highland Park, 30 is crazy high. It's might as well be $1,000 at that point. Zach thinks 8's fair. Under 1,000 on the Glenfarclas. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's got to be, because 25 is so cheap comparatively to other 25-year-olds. It's insane. You can't look at a Dalmore 25 for $300. I don't think. I'd be surprised, because when I saw their price for just the 18, I about died. It was like $220 ish. I'm like, wow, man. DHS says, DHS says Caol Ila is going up in price a lot. Their 15 cast strength was 180. Wow. That is on the higher end because, yeah, like if I got the 117, the 17 cast strength for 117 and the 15, is that I'm assuming that's the unpeated cast strength. Yeah, 25 is well over 1,000, I'm sure. But I'm thinking that if the cast strength 15 is selling for that high, man, I might have to nick them on value a little bit. Because that is a bit. 18 was 125, 15 was 180, and PD cast strength both. The 18 was 125 and the 15 was 180. Why would the 15 be so high comparatively? I think I know what's happening. I think because if you look at this bottle, just for an example, and I think your 18 is in the same realm as this one. If you look at the fine print, this one was distilled in 1997 and bottled in 2015. So this stuff is older. The new Caol Ila unpeated stuff, they didn't have a 17. I don't think they had to. I think they had to go with an 18 on it, and they have the 15. But the 15 must be some sort of. I wonder what makes it. Maybe they're getting lower on the available deal if people are really getting into the. I don't know, the pour. What the hell, right? We're gonna go for a little while here, so let's have another pour after this. I have a special drain I'm gonna pour after another pour of this. We'll make this a double. What the hell? Sorry to reach over. Oh man. And we're going neat. This is definitely a neat whiskey. The 15 came out a year later. So what makes the 15 special comparative to the 18? The only thing I could think of is just the amount of juice, but that does affect value no matter how you look at it. Because if I'm used to spending 120 on a 17 year, and then you're asking me to spend, all the way up to the 180 or whatever it was, 180 for the 15. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. The 15 is just newer, and they're raising their prices. Yeah. Well, we're gonna nick them on the value. Sorry. 7. What do you think about a 7 DHS? Do you think it's reasonable, or do you think it should be knocked even further, 6.5 or 6? The 12, is it still a reasonable price? Let me take a couple looks. What I like to use a lot of the times is, one second, for pricing, is Wine Searcher is a good one. Winesearcher.com. And if you just do the old Caol Ila, let's just look at the 12, just as a good solid baseline. 200 milliliter bottle for $23. That's funny. Let's go to the normal bottle sizes. 55 is like the baseline for most places, and it goes up. And I have seen it locally here a lot higher. It reaches about 70 here in Maryland. We're just high price state, unfortunately, when it comes to alcohol. But New York, Florida, New Jersey, it's DC even, you can find it for $55. I mean, that's pretty damn reasonable for a 12-year-old single malt. That's always consistent. Let's look at the 18. 18's a little, oh wow, $300. Jeez. Maybe they stopped. Maybe that isn't as readily available anymore. Let's look at the 15, unpeated. 120. I could find it for 120 to 125-ish. That's before shipping, but that's still pretty reasonable. Let me look at a 17, just for giggles. This one, the exact one I'm got here, it's ranging from like 140, 150, all the way up to 170, and there's somebody asking for $300. That's kind of crazy, but I think 170 down to 140-ish is it's reasonable. It's higher than I paid. The 117 I got a great sale on, I guess. But let's look at, just for giggles, I want to see how the moke. You can't find the moke unless you're going overseas. I'm just looking USA only. I'm trying to remember the 15, 25. Don't they have a new 25 core? 330 for 25. That's pretty reasonable. 330, I'd say, for a 25-year-old whiskey. Can't really go too crazy on it. If I expand my search to overseas, I wonder if I can find that. I could have sworn the 18 was like a new part of their core. Let me see something. There we go. It's just easier to find overseas. 120 to, it looks like, this is the peated version I'm talking about. Oh, let me show here. Sorry. Shoot you an email. Okay, sure will, Zach. Let me copy this for later so I don't mess up. So I don't do it now. I'm not going to have it for later. There we go. I'll shoot you an email. If not tonight, then tomorrow at some point. I appreciate it. Sorry, I've been missing your all's talk about the pricing and stuff. 12 goes for 73, 63 for the 12 here. Wow. That's on the higher end. 1,000 for the 35. Yeah, that's actually not crazy comparatively, I think, to the others. In New Orleans, the Caol Ila 15 is 115, the 17 is 134. And the 15 that you're talking about, Trooper, is it unpeated or peated? Because the one I'm looking at now on their core is, I'm looking at the 18 unpeated. The 18 peated. And it looks like it's not easy to find in America for some reason, but overseas you can find it for around 120-ish. It looks like, and not just peated, man. That's a higher ABV too, if I'm not mistaken. That's got to be 50. Where's that 40 something percent? 43% ABV. It's It is what it is. It's not easily found. I'm surprised that they have it listed on their Diageo's site as being part of their core on one hand, but it looks like that they don't really have it readily available. I'm just looking to see if I can. I'm double checking to make sure that they have this as part of their regular core, because it's not easily found. If it is 12, oops, go back, 12 distillers, 18, yeah, they have the 18 as part of their core line, but man, God help you trying to find it. Maybe I don't know, maybe it's not selling as well as it used to or something, but that will affect a couple things with but yeah, $300 for a bottle, and this is in DC. I mean, I think that's a little high, but if you can't find it in if that's like the only place that it's easily found, other than finding it dusty on an old shelf, and but they do have, like I said, they do have in the UK at least, you can get it for anywhere from 100 to 115-ish or so, and I think that's a fair price if you're looking at the 12 as 55, 85, 90, and this is in dollars, not pounds. So I think that's either way though. Let's go back to the old sheet and see what we got. I think 7's a fair price point for their charging. I think it's a good value. All right, so let's look at the last but not least factor in what we're looking at is the craft. Now, unfortunately, and I know that Some people don't think of it as a huge factor. Some people do think of it as a major factor. I think of it as a medium factor, and I think it should factor in the scores, but I don't think it's the be all end all of everything that you say about a distillery. And that the craft is do they chill filter, do they color, how do they make it, do they use their own, are they like Springbank where they craft it themselves, they bottle it themselves, they do everything. And with Caol Ila, unfortunately, historically, they do color, which I'm surprised that a 12 would have it, but you know it is what it is. I'm just double checking because everything I've done research on this and I've tried to find it where it doesn't state that it is, but they do color and they do chill filter. Now, not all the stuff, but the stuff that makes sense for them to chill filter, they're going to do it. But unfortunately, I think it does affect the overall score. And we're trying to find things about Caol Ila that Diageo can change to make it better. That's what this is all about, really, anyway. And the craft is one of the big, huge things that, I think we should factor. And unfortunately, I think they're going to get their lowest score with the crafting of it. And I know they're probably going to say, well, we color because we want it to be consistent. We when we use it, I'm not sure how it affects blending with other things, but I'm assuming that they color it before it's used for, when it's blended. I'm thinking that they would color it before, so I might be wrong. Does anybody know in the coloring process for blends if they do it before the blend or after? I'm surprised I never even asked that before, but not something I really thought about until now. Loch Ness says that the craft is very important. Color is questionable, but the non-chill filtering is a significant difference. Yeah, I do think they're both important. I do think the chill filtering is more effective on the taste and the overall presentation, the feel of it. At 43%, yes, it's chill filtered. Yeah, you wouldn't think it would be colored. I'm not saying that this particular bottling, the 17, is colored. I wouldn't. It's funny. I wouldn't suspect it. It's not dark by any means, but their 12 and their other, like their 18 and stuff. I'm pretty sure that they do color. Now, how much E158 do they use? That's something, unfortunately, that we can't factor in because it's not something that is shared. Sadly, I wish we were like Germany where they have to tell you if it's colored or if it's not, and I think that they should get to the point where they do say, hey, in our 12 we use 0.2 ounces of E158, and in 18 we use 1 ounce or whatever it. I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass, but it's they could be using different amounts for different blends or different single malts in different years, different unpeated versus peated. That might make a difference on how much they use. It's just the way it is. Oh, Jason Coates, good to see you. I didn't even know you were lurking back there, man. You've been quiet today, unless you're a late joiner. Are you late to our party? Thank you so much, guys, for sticking around. Give me a thumbs up before you go if you've had fun. I appreciate it, too. We're going to be around for a lot longer. I'm just getting started. They color a 35-year versatile. I don't know if I'd go that far. Oh, you just got here. Okay. Well, it's good to see you, man. We've been talking about Caol Ila. If you want to follow along, if you go to my channel and you go to the top where it says discussion, I have a link there to a live spreadsheet that I'm actually altering live right now as we talk about it. And we're talking about taste, we're talking about consistency, variety, age, availability, value, and craft. And that's where we are now, is talking about the craft And is there anything else besides the chill filtering and coloring and overall process of how the whiskey's made? Is there anything else in the craft that you think we should be looking at that I'm missing out on? Um, One thing I probably should talk about more, and I'm not really well versed in the actual physical aspects of how they do their stills and whatnot. Let's see if they have any um, valuable information outside of the normal marketing stuff that you tend to see. It's been around for more than 100 years, of course. Barley used here is still malted locally at Port Ellen, and spring water still rises from the limestone nearby Loch Lomond. Then falls to the sea at Caol Ila in a clear crystal stream, just as it always has. Huh. Well, if they use local barley there, that does give them a little hope there. Uh-oh. Looks like they're doing a major transformation at the distillery visitor experience. Yeah, Diageo's been big about changing the visitor centers. I didn't know they were doing something at Caol Ila. That's cool. Hopefully I'll get to visit there someday. That'd be nice. They must be having some sort of major construction work. Yeah. So limited access June of 26th. Well, they're a little late to the thing here, so it must have been done a while back, and they just never took the notice off. Huh. Unless maybe it's still going on since that date too. That's possible. Didn't think about that, because I'm sure if they're doing a huge major innovation, it's probably pretty damn intense, I have to say. Caol Ila is about as industrial as it gets on Isla. Jason says, "Yeah, I can imagine. It seems like it's some distillers just never want to let those barrels die." Yeah. I'm going back up a little bit. Color for idiots. I like that. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of these guys will say, well, we're coloring it for the Americans. And I think it's a bunch of crazy nonsense, because the people that are spending, they're doing this. And I'm looking at, the people that are really shelling out the big money for the good stuff. They want it crafted a certain way, and coloring is not something that they're actually looking for. I know they make probably a lot more money over time with the one-offs, expecting their whiskey to always be dark and all that, but I'm thinking, let's go all natural if we can. That's what I'm saying. Well, they don't get into let me see if they have any more they have like tours and stuff, information. They go into the ins and outs and whatnot, but just looking for anything else besides the fact that they use their own barley there. Port Ellen. I don't see anything out of the ordinary, but yeah, craft is, that's going to hurt. So, average place. Do you, if you think of most distilleries, if you took a percentage, guys, what would you say? Do more than 50% use coloring and chill filtering, or do less than 50% do it? The reason I ask is I'm trying to find that baseline for 5 where, it was easy to score the other distilleries we've done already, because with the exception of Glen Scotia, they didn't color or chill filter their stuff. And, consistency does, have a small factor in there as well with the craft, because if you're making it correctly, then it's going to be consistent. But it's more so on the thing. By volume, Lost Cause thinks it's probably more than 50%. Yeah. A fourth at least put some bottles and tell you no color. It's hard to say. Coloring is for vomiting, I think Trooper is trying to say there. Yeah, I think that I'd say there's probably a little more so the chill filtering and stuff, and it's kind of I mean, I gave, since Glen Scotia, they did coloring, but they did not do chill filtering. I gave them a 6. But since these guys do both, I think it's going to take them down to a 4. I hate to kill them, but they're still going to get a good score because they did such a good job with consistency and variety, and their age statements really, really saved their butts. If I look at a 4, the overall still going to be a solid 7, which is a B plus, which is not, I don't think it's really, out of bounds to say that they are above average. If I'm going to recommend, oh yes, and I'm sorry, I forgot to factor in the not just the coloring and the age. I'm sorry, the coloring and the chill filtering for the craft. It's also the ABV offerings. And thanks for reminding me about that, DHS. I forgot all about that being part of the equation. Do they have a lot of good cast strength offerings? And they do craft it at cast strength. I'll give them a little bit of a bonus there. That's why I'm not taking them down to a 2 or a 3 on the craft, because the color and chill filtering thing is a bit disappointing, I have to say. But with that said, I think 7.5 for taste, is good. I think 9.5 for consistency is very solid. Is 9 for the variety, 8 for the age statements. Availability is kind of lacking, 5 for that. Value though is way, I'd say above average, definitely 7 is solid. But the craft is where I think they're going to suffer a little bit with that. Caol Ila puts out the cast strength unpeated stuff. Their score isn't, though. Their core isn't. Yeah, though they do have a cast strength. That they do have a regular peated cast strength. Let me pull that up. If you guys did not know about that already, they have a natural cast strength. It's discontinued, unfortunately, but it was 61.3%. But it was peated, and I haven't had it. Has anyone had the peated natural cast strength option? It gets pretty damn good reviews. My friend Lee, also known as Aquaman. Yeah, I'm going to be on for a bit. I'm going to join you with an Ardbeg here, Loch Ness, in a second. I just need to pour it here after I finish this. I gotta get sipping though. I'm getting behind on my Caol Ila. Back to Mr. Lee, also known as Aquaman, his favorite nickname. He has had the Caol Ila natural cast strength and gave it a 4 out of 5, which is on his scale. That's pretty damn good. He's very picky, like I am. He goes into very major detail. So if you're interested, go to distiller.com and look up Lee Evolved, LEEEVOLVED. He does, and like myself, I've got a couple hundred. I'm sure he's got 300 or 400 probably by now. He does very well done reviews. You got to be in the mood to read, though. Him and Paul, Generously Paul is another friend on there, and Prene. Prene's like me. We talk, but we try to make it a little more concise, where we have a few paragraphs. Paul and Lee, they'll write you a novel, and they'll go into some crazy detail about every nuance. They'll give you some more historical things about the distillery that you might not have known. They'll go into overall a good feeling of their experience, and well versed on the English language, I have to say. So cheers. So let's have a drink. Let's have a cheers, Mr. Lee. I'm not sure if he's watching or if he watches. I know he works a lot, and I talk to him from time to time still. I had a couple health issues and constructions and stuff that I was going through where I kind of took a seat back. But he was like the first person that was like, "Hey, Telex, what's up? I haven't seen you in a while, so I really appreciate his, looking out for me, making sure I was doing okay." I just told him I had to have a little break, but back in the saddle. Uh, Not buying as much as I used to. I've been unfortunately having to spend money on other things, and I'm still doing so now. But with that said, I still have enough juice to last quite a while, so I'm doing okay. I'm just not doing as much trading as uh, salsa trading, I should say, as I used to. But I'm still going to get back into it eventually. I'm just gonna get back in this, swing of things and saddle. But yeah, cheers to Mr. Lee. And for Aquaman, this is not tainted by any water. Anyway, wow. Sorry. It's amazing how much better this is after the oxidation. I don't get any olive notes in here anymore. It's unbelievable. It really is. So it goes to show, just because you open something and you're not into it, sit that sucker on the shelf for like a good month, 2 months. Hell, if it's that bad, give it a year. You're not going to lose anything. Maybe give a couple drams out to your friends, but come back to it. Hopefully, have at least a half bottle left. Like I, almost had we'll say a fourth of a bottle left. Come back to it and see. You'll be surprised at how different it can be. It really can be. A lot of these reviews about the distillers, I'm sorry, the Caol Ila natural cask strength are pretty solid. A 4 from Lee, a 4, a 5, a 4, a 4, a 5, a 5, a 4, a 5, a 2, and a 5. So it's it is spread out a bit, but as you can see, it's fairly decent. I'm surprised that Lee was the only one that had that one, but he must have had it on his own. I didn't read the article in detail yet. I'll have to come back to that, but goes to show that they did have that at some point. But anyway, I think I'm going to slap a big B, fat B plus on this, and I think that's fair. It's a solid distillery. I'm glad they're around. I'm really glad that they have enough production to satisfy all of these blends, and no one ever said if Portishead is doing their own blends or if they're doing like single malt casks and whatnot. I'll have to look more into that myself unless somebody knows. But yeah, he still prefers his whiskey without adding anything. I think he'll always be that way. I can see why. I mean, I will agree, like 9 times out of 10, especially when you're dealing with cast strength stuff and you've got the palate and it's experienced and you can pretty much handle any cast strength thing that's thrown at you. Once you get to that level, I mean, it's easy to find stuff. I'd say 75% of the stuff is actually better, just neat anyway. But there are those 25% that, I think are way, way better with a couple drops and sometimes a little dash. I mean, sometimes it does take a dash to really get the molecules flowing in such a way where you appreciate it more. But, DHS is exactly right. You drink it the way you want, like most said. But if you don't at least try a drop or two of water, you are missing out on, I think, at least 10 to 20% of the overall whiskey experience that you could be having. Thanks for doing this. I haven't heard much about Caol Ila and have it here, so we'll give it a go sometime soon. Yes, Sati, I think it's a really a fun one. Like I said, the 12 is solid. It might not be the most complex palate whiskey that you can find, but it does well on the nose. And when you get to the 18s and the 17 unpeated and some of their, if you can, save up and get some of their mid to high level stuff, it's actually well worth the view. And any blend I've had with Caol Ila in it, I'm talking like, I think No Name is like I'm trying to remember the recipe. Thankfully, John Glacier is pretty open about it. I want to say it was 70% Ardbeg, 20% Caol Ila, 0.5 Dollywing, and 0.5 Kleinlich. Something weird like that. And it all makes sense. It really does. Yeah, I don't add water for dilution. I add for exploration, and that's what I think that people don't realize. Noni number two is going to be high Caol Ila. That'll be interesting. I was wondering if I did hear they were doing like a newer version of it. I've only had the first one, and I've had the double single, and I've had the Peat Monster, of course. I've had a lot of different compass boxes, but I haven't had that new number, no name two number two. I wonder if they're just going to reverse the Ardbeg Caol Ila ratio. If it's going to be like 70% Caol Ila, 20% Ardbeg, and still the 0.5 for the Dollywing and the Kleinlich. The Kleinlich he uses, he told me like in person. Luckily I got to meet John Glacier a while back with the Scotch Four Dummies in New York, and he explained about the Kleinlich being a great extender. And the Dollywing, if I could ask him a question right now, and I know he never will watch my channel, he doesn't probably even do that kind of crap. But if he ever did, and he ever came on and came to the chat, or if I ever got to talk to him again, I would ask him, hey John, we talked about Kleinlich before, but what do you like about Dollywing? What is it? What's in it? What does it give you that you use it, for? If the Kleinlich is an extender, maybe Dollywing is a good base, because I thought Kleinlich was like his base because it's got that heavy mouth coat in it. But he uses it, he says, specifically to extend flavors, to extend the finish on things. So that was interesting. I learned a lot in that trip, and I'm thinking that maybe I can't remember. I've had Dollywing before. I've only had one. But I don't remember it being in a certain way. I remember it being a very savory dram, maybe like a sourdough kind of a deal. Tobias and the Angel, 49.1% Caol Ila and 50.9% Kleinlich. Wow. That is crazy. Doesn't that sound good, though, if you think about it? I mean, I love Kleinlich. I love Caol Ila. And to marry those two things together, it's like, neat. Hard to find Ardbeg casks these days. Yeah. Yeah, that's a distillery that you rarely ever find independent bottlings for. I found a new Chieftain. It was okay. I had a sample taste of it, and it was young and it was decent. But to me, if I want a young, decent whiskey to try, I'm gonna go for like a Lagavulin 8 or like a Glendronach 8 or like a Bunnahabhain Choichik Ada, or Lefroy quarter cast 10-year, that kind of stuff. It's like I'm not gonna change that. Laura's so good. It is. I do miss the 18 and the 15, and I'll be getting more detail about that with the show with Mr. Stephen Connor. He couldn't make it tonight, I don't think, but I'm looking forward to seeing him on the Lefroy show. It's going to be a fun one, I have a feeling. That guy has some really good taste. Really good. Noni number two is 10% Calister and 75% Caol Ila. That sounds good too. And it goes to show Caol Ila will work with so many things. You just have to know, how to blend it. And the only way you can figure out how to blend it is to, experiment. It's just like science of any kind of field. You have to try things before you figure it out. And I haven't even begun, to find really good blends. But I do know that if I am ever going to try it myself on a serious basis, which if I do decide to do it, I will do a show about different experiments that I'm doing in real time and hopefully have you guys, um, you know, go along. And yeah, the Glentronic 8 is fantastic, man. That's one of my favorite bottles. I wish it was readily available. I think that I don't even know if they sell it much anymore. I think it was a limited run, but man, I miss it. I miss it so bad. I'd love to get my hands another bottle of that. I'm not sure how easy or hard it's going to be, but it should be fun. The But yeah, I figured, if I give you guys like a couple bottles to get at least, maybe three at the most. I don't want to overwhelm you guys with trying to get bottles of stuff because hopefully you already have them or you can get them. But definitely, I would have a Clynelish 14 at all times. If you don't have a Clynelish 14 at all times, you're doing yourself disservice. You got to get a Clynelish 14 and have at least some at all times. That's definitely part of any blend I think is going to be pretty good. I definitely would have Caol Ila 12 at all times if you can. I would definitely have a Talisker 10 at all times if you can. A Lagavulin 16 would be maybe another bottle I'll throw in there. But I think I'll probably start off with a Clynelish, a Caol Ila, and maybe like I don't know, something else. I'll try to think of a recipe that I want to try and give you guys a heads up what I'm thinking I might try to do. Work with three bottles. We'll try different ratios. We might try, we'll start off with like a 10%. I can't do math in my head like on the fly, but a 10, let's see, a 70, and a 20. Yeah, so 70, 10, 20. Or we might decide to go 33, 33, 33 kind of thing, or like a 0.5, 50, and then 45, whatever. Figure out the math, but we'll sort it out. DHS has about 150 open bottles. Wow, I thought I was bad. Jesus, man. But yeah, you guys will be you'll be the best people to experiment. I might do like an off show. It might not be part of the distillery, march, but we'll do like another type of show where we'll do some like hands-on experimentation blends on our own and see how it goes. I think that might be a little fun, and you're the kind of guys that'll have a few things here and there where we can practice with. So I'm gonna definitely brush up on trying to get my hands at least on some 12-year-old stuff of different distilleries and try to think of what would go well with something else. And I got to get a proper way to measure, I guess, the percentages. I guess you got to start out with a amount of liquid you want to go with, and then try to do the percentages based off of like one of those shot measuring cup deals. We could do spoons. I'm not sure the best method of blending. I might have to do some research on this and get back, but that's going to be on my to-do list. Glendronach 12 in our Big 10. Quick, someone do it. Well, I think that would be interesting. The only thing you got to be careful of is not just the sherry and peat aspects. Definitely go the smaller on the peat, larger on the Glendronach. So I already would start out like 20% Ardbeg, 80% Glendronach. But take account of the lemon lime aspect of an Ardbeg and the ruby fruit, strawberry, raspberry aspect of a Glendronach 12. Is that going to marriage well? You got to think about the profiles. You got to think about the vegetal. If you pick something like a Caol Ila Moke and you're like, okay, I'm going to blend this with something, you got to think, well, what's going to work with a vegetative, earthy base, if that's going to be your base or your top. What's going to marry with that well? Because if you pick some off the wall fruit flavor, you'd not be surprised at how bad it actually ends up being. I know someone told me that they mixed it was Dram Dude. He did an experiment where he took Glenkinchie, which is a great Scotch to blend with. Glencairn 12 is a really good base as far as a something that you're going to try to enhance. I tried it with a Mortlock 11. It was an independent bottling. I'm not going to bash it too hard, but it was very, very savory and sourdough bready and borderline sour, and it just didn't have any. The Glencairn 12 just didn't have. Was just too light. It just didn't marry well with it. It was okay. It was better, I think, than the start of just the Glencairn 12 by itself and just the Mortlock 11 by itself. That's why I did decide to keep blending it together. But he tried it with I think a Glendronach. I think he said or an Ardbeg 10. No, it was an Ardbeg 10. The Ardbeg 10 and the Glencairn just didn't meld together well, and I think it was probably the floral aspect of the Glencairn with the lemon lime peat profile of the Ardbeg. It just clashed. I think he just didn't get into it for that, and I think I'd probably have a similar reaction to it. I think I'd be like, I don't know. It's a bit it's a bit iffy to do that, but. Before I forget, let's go ahead and get out something special. And it's funny because when we were doing the Ardbeg show, they were the first of the oh, here we go. Sorry, catch up on comments real fast. I've yet to try Lowland, any Lowland Scott, but I keep almost buying Glencairn. Yeah, it's the 12, I think, would be okay start, Rabbit. Just keep in mind that if you don't like it by itself, which you might not, because it is pretty basic and light. It's a typical, deal. But if you go for the Bladnoch Adela 15, man, that's the Lowland Scotch to buy. If you're going to buy a Lowland and start off with a Lowland, that's the best Lowland Scotch I've ever had so far, I have to say. Oh man, I'm just past the shoulder on this Ardbeg Grooves, and it just keeps improving. I guess you already opened yours. Well, speaking of, when we did the Ardbeg show, unfortunately, I forgot that I had this because I would have popped this open. It's the Ardbeg Kelpie committee release. I still have from, of all people, Aquaman. I've had it before. I had my own bottle. It's not up here because I have the limited release up here on the shelf, but I keep the committee release back in the old closet back there that you can kind of see. But I've been saving this for a bit for a special occasion. I figure, what the hell? I've been having great fun with you guys. I can't say. I can't explain how much I appreciate you guys being around and just hanging out and having some really good scotch with me. This Grooves is the standard, not the CR. I've had both. They're both great. I've got an unopened limited edition back here that you're talking about, the standard. And I call it LR for limited edition, CR for committee release. The committee was outstanding too, but the limited was really good. I like it a lot too. DHS and I think have similar taste profiles. We're going to use a dragon glass for this guy. Have you guys seen one of these? I won this from the Scotch Test Dummies, one of their first shows back. God, I'm trying to remember. Not one of their first shows, but one of their first giveaways. They were like, I think I got like a Cask One signed coin and on one giveaway. Then I also got a set of these dragon glasses, man, and they're really good for just something different. It sits on the side like so, and it really lets the juice open up. And we'll start off with that and give it like a little bit of drop. We're going to put a little more in there because I think I'm going a little crazy with not crazy, but a little more water than I wanted to. I don't have my exact dropper with me. That's way over there, and I don't feel like getting up and getting over there. um, the but it's good for especially for the ones that you want to air out more often. So the Caol Ila 17, if I knew it was going to happen, I would have put it in this sucker and let it air out a little more. But it looks like such a small dram when you have it in the bottom of the glass like that. I think I need to pour a little more in here. I'm trying to save a little bit, but it's hard to save this kind of stuff when you're having such a good time and you know it's going to be good. Thanks so much for stopping by, Gawkin. Sorry you have to go, but oh man, yeah, you should buy the grooves. 110 is a good price, well worth it. LR or committee release, either way. And the one thing I love about the Kelpie, this is the one before the grooves. This year was the drum. Not my cup of tea, really. I wasn't a huge fan, but it's hard, I think, to get the rum cast thing exactly right, especially with Isla. But I'm glad they tried it. It's tasty. It's not bad. It's just, instead of the A plus that I'm used to with Dark Cove and Kelpie and Grooves, they gave me like a B plus with the drum. Can't bitch about that too much, but anyway. Yes, I do have a Talisker 18 back there, Louise. Good to see you. It's been a while since I think I've seen you. Been tempted to order one. Do I like it? Yes. The Talisker 18 is outstanding. It's the best of the 10 with that great taste. But if you like florals, if you don't mind having really good complex florals with it, and even a little more chocolate, black pepper, white pepper with it, that's the 18. I think it's well worth it. It is pricey, but for the age statement and the and I think it's I'm trying to remember the ABV on that one. They're all on the higher side, I believe. Let me take a quick look. If you already know, then just say it. But I got to get my mouse over here. 1 second. Let's see. Maybe distillery. What were we looking for? Oh, yeah, that's right. Talisker 18. It is 45.8, and I think they're mostly 45.8 at Talisker because they use their that's right, they use their latitude, longitude. I forgot which number they're using, but it's one of those two. And they're typically about the same ABV across the board. Kind of think Bunnahabhain does something similar. I can't remember if it was for the same reason or not, but it's one of the best whiskeys I have ever had. The Talisker 18. It's the same ABV as the 10-year. I don't think my review did it justice because it was one of the very first whiskeys I think I actually did a review on, as I fell in love with the 10 so much, and I went for the 18. And when I had it the first time, I had it at a bar. Thankfully, I have a really good whiskey bar here that I can go. DHS didn't like it very much. It looks like I just found your review with mine. That's funny. I think you're the same DHS. Looks like you guys are. Yeah. Anyway, I don't think I was ready for it the first time, but when I came back to it, I had a better appreciation. Maybe I had a bad bottle the first time. Maybe it's not consistent. DHS, I noticed that you didn't like the 18 very much. Well, I guess maybe not as much as other 18s. Did you just have it one time, or have you tried it multiple times? the reason I ask is the first time I had it, I wasn't really into it very much, but the second time or the third time I had it, I think I did like it a lot more. And I'm wondering if it's a consistency issue or something else, or maybe a year, like a batch. It's hard to. I had to go get the bottle and all that to see if there was a certain year batch type thing, but yeah, the 57 degree north deal is 57 ABV. Yeah, I remember that because that was a good one too. Uh, the only one at Talisker I didn't wasn't like it was okay. The finish was just not there for me. It was the Port Reid, which is it's an exclusive a travel retail thing. That's the only one that kind of was like, eh. But I don't want to get too much in the weeds because I'm going to do a Talisker show later on. So Zach is talking blends with somebody it looks like with the Ardbeg 90/10 zone point. That work better with the Lefroy. Yeah, it's fun to think about that kind of stuff and try to figure out, But going back to the Ardbeg Kelpie, I like this one a lot because of the Black Sea special cast they had for this. They do make a difference. At first, I thought, is this going to be one of those marketing things where it's just a ploy? It's not that big of a difference. Is it just a bunch of hoo-ha crap, or is it going to be legit? And I tell you what, this was legit. It really was. 51.7%. Virgin, I'm not sure how to say the word Edigig, but I can't speak Russian. But Virgin Adieg Republic Oak Casks is the specific type, but the actual easy way to remember is the Black Sea casks is the way I remember it being described because it's on the coast of the Black Sea. But man, this was it did have a lot of salt, like the Caol Ila, but I remember, man, it has a ooh, that's what I remember. It's tamed a little bit, being in the being an old pour, I think slightly, but still great, still fantastic. It's almost like a German breakfast in a bottle. It's got but good. I mean, good stuff. Like there's broiled meats and stewed fruits and seaweed, and I remember not just those notes, but the like a spatzel. Uh, and the finish was really good because it lasted a while, and I got a lot of like tar and dark chocolate, rich fudge at the end, and at the very, very, very end, you get really, really like a sardine kippers kind of a fish kind of a thing going on. Black pepper. Yeah, I do like portishead. Summer Caol Ila, I think yes, they are. Tried the 10th anniversary of the tasting. Thought it was very good. Yeah, I was talking earlier, Louise, when we were doing the show. You might have to rewind because we already went through all the scoring and the details and whatnot. But go back and take a look at all the things we went through. But I suspect Portishead is like some sort of like testing area for Caol Ila or for Diageo to try different things. Maybe I'm not. This is a guess. This is a hypothesis. This is not fact by any means, but I'm thinking that they probably use them as some sort of like testing ground to try different cast strength slash recipe options. I don't think they're solely Caol Ila. I think they do other things in Islay specifically. Um, it's Elixir Bottlings, from what I remember, is the company. So I don't know how they're connected at all, if at all, with Diageo, but they do some definitely Caol Ila-esque. They have that taste. On more than one occasion, I've had a couple different ones. And everybody that I talked to that's had Portishead has also suspected Caol Ila as being a major factor and what they're doing. I asked the question earlier. No one, I don't think, answered. Louise, you might know, but does Portishead, do they do their own blends like a compass box thing, or are they doing things where they're buying a cask and they're having it mature and they're doing their own finishing and things like that in house, or are they just taking a little bit of Caol Ila or a lot of Caol Ila and thinking, okay, let's put a little Lafroig in it or a little Lagavulin in it or a little whatever, and seeing how it goes. I don't know the specifics. I did try to look into it, but I couldn't really find any major details about that. Zach saying DHS do the Glentronic with 10% Lafroig cask strength. Let me think. The Glentronic 12 as your base with just 10% of Lafroig cask strength for a finisher. That does sound good. The cask strength helps, yeah, because you're starting out. I forgot what the percentage is of. I think it's 46 on a Glentronic 12. Let me take a quick look. Glentronic 12. 43. You're starting with just a mere 43. You're boosting it with not just the peat, but and the magnificent Lafroig peat, I must say, but you're also giving it that boost of ABV. That actually does sound pretty enticing. It does sound tasty. Louise says Ralphie thinks the 10th anniversary is a Caol Ila aged in a peated cask. Okay. Not sure. Don't think they are blends. Okay. So they're probably doing their own, like independent bottling would, of just buying a cask and doing their own maturation process. I have a feeling that's probably true, and the fact they're probably doing it for experimentation purposes. I'm thinking, without putting the Caol Ila name on it. I'm not sure why they would be. Well, I guess Caol Ila does have a pretty good following. Probably don't want to destroy the following with experimentations that don't go the way they plan exactly, but that's a guess. Portishead, by their website, says they bottled from 30 casks of the same malt. 30 casks of the same malt. So when you say the same malt, is that the same distillery? Is that like 30 different casks from Caol Ila? We'll say like that type of thing per se. Zach says that the Lafroig peat pairs better. Yeah, I could see that. As long as it, I mean, because some people don't. I'm down with the TCP iodine, but if you're not down with the TCP iodine, though, you got to take that into a factor. Is the Corey Vrecken worth the extra $10 or so, slightly more than the Uigeadail? I have the Uigeadail Levitt. It seems to overshadow the Corey. Well, Seth, here's the deal with the Corey Vrecken versus the Uigeadail. The Uigeadail is one of the best sherry whiskeys I've ever had, bar none, period. I don't care if it's the 2008 version or the 2018 version. They're all solid. They're all good. They're all consistently good. The Corey Vrecken is like, if you like Talisker, which is that, if you like black pepper, white pepper, that island-esque kind of twist, if you can imagine that with an Uigeadail, I think that's what the Corey Vrecken really is. If I never tried taking the Uigeadail and mixing it with the Talisker, I say it's not. It's better than maybe the 10. I'm not sure if it's as high as the 18. If you can imagine a Talisker 15 being blended with a Uigeadail, I think that's what the Corey Vrecken pretty much would be. DHS, is that since you're a fan like myself of the Corey Vrecken, and I like the Uigeadail a little bit more sometimes. It depends on my mood. Sometimes I'm in the Corey Vrecken mood. Sometimes I'm in an Uigeadail mood. But DHS, do you find some Talisker-esque qualities to it? I find it to be very peppery, very black, white, peppery. more savory, a little more meaty, a little more steak almost to it, if that makes any sense. And it kind of has more of a dark cove-ish, filet mignon kind of feel to the whiskey, in my opinion. Yes, from all distillery. So I guarantee you it's got to be Caol Ila. It's got to be. I'm 99.9% sure that Portishead is using different casks from Caol Ila to do experimentation releases. That's got to be what they're about. I'm just wondering, like, I guess they probably figure, well, we can get a really good deal on Caol Ila cast because there's so many of the damn stuff because they use it so many blends. They have to churn it out like crazy. So they have all this stuff there. They probably get a good deal on buying casks from them and then doing their own thing with it. If it's not experimentation for Diageo, then it's probably their own experimentation, just due to the fact of the plentiful, you know, casks that are available out there because of so much demand. Um, Corey is on my short list for sure. Oogie, heavy sherry and peat are really hit or miss for me. Yeah. Huh. I actually get a nice coffee chocolate note on the Corey Brecken, which is what I love about it. But yeah, there's more spice to it, I think. Yeah, I do also remember the chocolate, the dark chocolate finish aspect to it. Website says dark cherry plum, dark chocolate espresso. Yeah, I think that's a well documented version, but you have to put the spice in there. I got a ton of pepper off the Quarry Brecken, which reminded me of some heavy Talisker type of aspects to it. So that said, if you like, if you like the Talisker 10, can think of it more refined at higher age. And if you like the Ugadal, I think those together is kind of the easiest way to do it. Loch Ness hasn't had the Corey, but the Oogie was fantastic. Loch Ness, I would try the Corey record if you get a chance. I don't think it's a bad deal if you don't mind those aspects that I talked about. It's a little more drier too. Corey Reckon's a drier, I think, finish than the Ugadal. I got to be in the mood for it, but when I'm in the mood for it, it's outstanding. Um, Zach says the sherry of Glentronic with Lefroy is a fantastic combo. Well, there you go. Huh. I never personally took a Lefroy. I do have the 10 cast strength. I don't have a Glentronic 12, though. That's what kills me. I'll have to keep that in mind. That would be a great a first try. You know what we should do? Maybe let's go ahead and call it, guys. Let's say we don't have to do it anytime like extremely soon, but maybe like an off show. It doesn't have to be a Tuesday. It could be like a different day if it's better for everybody. But try to get your hands on the Glentronic 12 and a Lefroy cast strength 10. And just one other bottle. Just one other one. Pick your choice. And let's play around with that and see if we can find what we all unanimously I can't even say that. I don't think I could say that if I didn't have anything to drink. Unanimously can agree on some sort of like recipe with that. And and hey, maybe we'll call it the Telex show's first blend, or Telex's show blend number 1, or something like that. And we'll track them. I'll do another spreadsheet, and I'll have it publicly available, and have it where you guys can maybe even do some changes and whatnot, keep track of recipes and stuff, and maybe we can find that perfect ratio, and not just with maybe the Glentronic 12 and the Lefroy 10 cast strength. Maybe we'll throw like 0.5 of a Kleinlich, or 0.5 of Daliween, or 0.5 of something else, and see, if it makes sense, if it works. I think it'd be worth a try, and we'll track it. And that way, if if half of us think that this one version is great, then that's great to document it. But if 85% of us think that this is, a better option, like the 80 to 20% is a lot better than the 70-30, that kind of thing. Electronic 12 is $70 here, man. Without telling you what to do, Jason, also take note that it's extremely easy to get the 12 for a lot cheaper in different methods, if you know what I mean. And not just for the 12, but the 15, 18, and 21 is considerably cheaper in other avenues, in other locations, in other geographic locations. The salsa extremely deviates in price because Maryland is extremely expensive here. It's also at least $70, if not $75 here. But there are other ways to get your hands on Glenrowan 12. Keep that in mind. So we'll try it out. It's kind of hard not to have the Glenrowan 12 on the bar because it's such an easy good drink. It's an easy daily. Yeah, the 12 is 52 in Wisconsin. Oh, okay, there you go. It could be cheaper in another major geographic changes too. I've heard the salsa could be as low as 40 in other areas, believe it or not. Even after taxes and ABV charges and all sorts of weird things you could throw at it. So I'm glad you guys got excited about the blending thing, and that might be something that we can track. And I think it'll be fun. It'll be something to dive into. Wow, that is just too good. Oh my goodness. Not peer pressuring. Yeah. So just site stop shipping. There's a lot of sites out there that will ship salsa, Jason. There's a lot, and I will be happy to help you. Telex at outlook.com is my email address, and I would be happy to share lots of options if you're so inclined and interested. And that's for anybody that's interested on ways to possibly get salsa in different realms. I can't promise that you can get salsa in your state. I definitely do not want anyone to break any laws or anything. With that said, there are lots of places that will, do things in certain ways. So it will it'll even itself out. Got to be option that ship to my state. They don't all. Yeah. 70 is laughable. But I mean, it's worth a good $60, man. Come on. I mean, 52 is definitely a steal. I'd say if you get Wisconsin for 52, you got to be on that, man. But 60, I think, is a more reasonable price. I'll agree with you there. For their 12, I think it's worth it. Yeah, the 12 Glenrowan goes great into a Ardbeg, and the Lefroy goes better into the Glenrowan. Interesting. Well, the good thing is, I'm going to go ahead and start the spreadsheet, guys. I'll put something together, and we'll track. We'll get really into it where we're tracking, like, for one distillery, with this particular bottle, this distillery, goes better with it than other ones, and this is a bit subjective. So we might have some really strange, pairings and things where one guy is like, this sounds great and fantastic, and another guy says that's the worst thing I've ever tasted. That probably will happen. You got to take that into account. There is some risk involved when you're doing blending. That's why when you are, deciding to start, definitely take extremely small amounts. And I'm talking invest in an eyedropper. No joke. Invest in an eyedropper, because if you don't have an eyedropper, when it comes to blending with PX, like last show I talked about these. I got a bottle of PX sherry back here and a bottle of Oloroso sherry. That does come into play when you're wanting to do some playing around. And without an eyedropper, it's hard to get it exactly right. And even when you're trying to do that 0.5% of a blend with 70% of that and 30% of that, or 20% of that, and 0.5 of this, 0.5 of that, you got to have the instruments, the tools to get it to that level. So once you taste my wife's cooking, everything else tastes fantastic. She's gonna kick your ass, dude. Trooper says, Scotch for Dummies just shipped me a McKellen Maker's Cut 2017 salsa to me. Oh, nice. Is that the classic cut you're talking about there, Trooper? The classic cut for 2017? If that's it, then that is a good one. That one, it's like the opposite of the Caol Ila, though, for me. It was great out of the bottle at first, and slowly over time, the closer I got to the bottom of the bottle, the worse it actually got to me. It's kind of strange, but the first 3/4 of the bottle were great. I liked it. No, I know, but she's still gonna kick your ass, dude. She's gonna stomp all over you. She doesn't know, but man, you better hope to God she never goes back and looks at your whiskey buddies review channels, man. Because when she sees that sucker pop up, it's on. Anyway, well, thanks for hanging out, guys. It's been great. I went over 20 minutes than what I thought I was going to, which is pretty crazy. I do have to work tomorrow, so I got to be good. I can't go too nuts tonight, but it's been fun, as always, and I really appreciate you guys hanging out this long with me. It's been awesome, and it's been a hell of a ride so far. We've been given some decent scores. I know so far we are going to hit some scores where they're not so forgiving. I've got 2 A- and 2 B+ so far. I think that's fair. But when we hit some of these distilleries that have some issues with their craft, or issues with their availability, or issues with their age statements and all of the above, man, it's gonna be insane. It's gonna be harsh. But the reason I'm doing this is to let LVMH, the Ardbeg Glenmorangie guys, Diageo, Thai Bev, the Pernod Brothers. I think the Pernod Brothers, is it? No, the Pernod. What's his name? I can't even. I had it on the brain and then I lost it. I think his last name's Bricard. I can't even remember that name. Yeah, Pernod Bricard. Guys like William Grant and Sons and Beam Suntory. All the big boys and the little guys too. Like Angus, what was that one I just saw? I lost it. There was an Angus something or other. Angus Dundee distiller that runs Glencadam. I'm trying to give them ideas of how to better their distillery as a whole, their service, their brand, their offerings. Is it the taste? Is it the consistency? Is it the variety? Is it the age statements? Is it the availability? Is it the value of the dollar? Is it the craft? The reason why we're doing this is because, these guys need to make a little changes to make it better. Because I want everybody to be Ardbeg. I want everybody to be, that level of Ardbeg's got some things they can do better with the availability factor of their age statements. I don't want to have to spend $500 for a 19 or 20 something whiskey. It's a little extreme, $300 to $500, but it is what it is. I guess when certain other ones are doing the same thing, it's hard to argue with it, and people are willing to pay for it. Then I guess it's supply and demand. But it is what it is. We gotta find ways to improve, and it's what it's all about. Don't ever get complacent in anything in life. Don't ever think it's good enough, because as soon as you think that, the whole drive, the whole reason for everything just kind of falls to the wayside, and you can do better than that. That's the way I look at it. there's always room to improve, and so it's going to be a fun journey, man. We've got a long one ahead, and I'm excited to kind of. You guys really helped me think about the blending thing. So that's going to be the next chapter 2 on the side with our back and forth, and I'm looking forward to doing it. So Slanchiva and cheers. See you next time.